In a world quick to judge and slow to understand, sometimes life delivers miracles that challenge everything we think we know. This is the extraordinary true story of Sarah and Mark, a couple whose love was tested in the most unexpected way when their newborn twins arrived with strikingly different skin tones. One baby had rich, caramel skin and dark curls, a perfect blend of her parents' mixed heritage. The other was pale, with fiery red hair and bright blue eyes, a mirror image of his Irish father. The shocking difference sparked accusations, shattered trust, and thrust their family into a global spotlight. But beneath the controversy lay a breathtaking genetic mystery, one that would teach them and the world a powerful lesson about love, science, and the beautiful unpredictability of life. This is the tale of how two colors, one family, and an unbreakable bond defied the odds and rewrote destiny. Let us know where you are watching from and what time you found this video. There was a strong presence of the metallic taste of disinfectant in the air of the delivery room, as well as the primordial aroma of new life there. Sarah was fatigued but dazzling as she held her first newborn child in her arms, and a gasp of unadulterated love sprang out of her mouth. The midwife said, "A girl," as she gently took the swaddled child into her arms and conveyed the news. In addition to having traits that perfectly matched Sarah's Ghanaian origin with her husband Mark's Irish pedigree, Anya had skin that was similar to warm caramel, a sprinkling of dark hair, and a touch of dark hair. The atmosphere was filled with happiness. Following a few minutes, a second shriek pierced the atmosphere. The midwife exclaimed, "And a boy," with a tone that may be described as one of astonishment this time around. It was the second baby that she held up. Sarah let out a gasp. A mirror copy of Mark's newborn photographs. Baby Leo had skin as pale as ivory, a shock of fine, flaming red hair, and stunningly blue eyes. They were a perfect match for one another. Seeing the twins resting next to one another was both magnificent and perplexing because of the difference between them. Mark, who had been beaming at Anya, froze, Anya said. His grin crumbled, much like a piece of broken glass. Immediately, his eyes went from the undeniably pale features of Leo to the weary face of Sarah, and then they returned to Anya. His eyes were filled with a maelstrom of raw, unpleasant mistrust, uncertainty, and incredulity all at the same time. The unfathomable, the charge that he had never imagined he would be able to speak, tore from him in a hoarse whisper that resonated louder than a yell in the room that had experienced a dramatic drop in temperature. "Oh, Sarah, how is it? How is he doing? That little one, he is not it. What exactly did you do, Sarah?" The charge lingered in the atmosphere, making the occasion more tainted. Joy vanished from Sarah's face, and it was replaced with a chilling sensation of betrayal and a crushing sense of shock. "Are you Mark?" She stutteringly said, "What are you saying?" as tears began to build up in her eyes. However, he was unable to hear her. He was only able to see the evidence that was impossible in front of him. One twin reflected their combined reality, while the other twin seemed to be entirely his own. Following his departure, he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving Sarah alone with their miraculous kids and a heart that was broken as a result of his hatred. During the weeks that followed, Sarah found herself in a bleak terrain. Mark went into the spare room so that he could talk about the infants in a manner that was limited to the essentials. It was a continual charge that he remained silent. The stares that friends and family members cast in a sideways manner stung worse than any words they could have spoken. Anya, with her dark curls and attentive brown eyes, and Leo, with his flaming hair and innocent blue gaze, were Sarah's delightful and perplexing children. Sarah felt as like she was floating in a nightmare, and she was holding her children tightly. She became obsessed with the genetic riddle. Powered by desperation and the steadfast assurance of her own faithfulness, she spent sleepless hours studying, combing medical publications and esoteric genetics forums. Her efforts were propelled by the conviction that she was faithful. The word heteroparental superfecundation was something that she came upon one morning with a bleary-eyed dawn. In spite of the fact that it seemed like science fiction, the description was strangely accurate. It was a description of the very unusual occurrence of fraternal twins being produced from two distinct eggs that were fertilized by sperm from two different dads during the same ovulation cycle. Could it be that? On the other hand, she had not been with anybody else, with the exception of the dates did not add up. After that, she delved further into her own family history, which turned out to be the important key that had been ignored. A point that is sometimes overlooked due to her more prominent West African traits is the fact that her maternal grandmother was Irish. It dawned on Sarah that she was carrying a complicated genetic patchwork. Infidelity was not the solution. Rather, it was a case of genetics and chance coming together in a way that is quite uncommon. Two distinct eggs gave rise to the twins Anya and Leo, who are considered to be fraternal. Recessive genes for pale complexion, red hair, and blue eyes were passed down to Sarah from her Irish grandmother. Sarah's hidden heritage includes these characteristics. Typically, these genes stayed latent in opposition to her dominant alleles that were rich in melanin. Mark's contribution. Mark, who has his own dominant and recessive characteristics, supplied sperm that carried genes for both dark and light features. Anya was the recipient of Sarah's contribution to the genetic lottery, which consisted of an egg harboring dominant genes for increased melanin synthesis. Additionally, it is quite probable that Mark's sperm supplied equally prominent genes, which led to her stunning caramel skin tone. Sarah gave a separate egg to Leo, which had the recessive genes for pale complexion, red hair, and blue eyes. Leo was born with these characteristics. An important fact is that the sperm that Mark used to fertilize this egg had his recessive genes for the same characteristics. Expression. As a result, Leo received the recessive-recessive combination from both of his parents for these particular characteristics. The dominating combinations were passed down to Anya, however. The recessive genes were only manifested in Leo since he inherited the recessive allele from both of his parents. Sarah was the origin of the recessive genes. In an effort to face Mark, Sarah armed herself with printouts, scholarly papers, and hands that were shaking. "We need a DNA test," she remarked, maintaining her composure in spite of the pain in her body. "Not because I doubt myself, but because you doubt us." It was excruciating to wait for the findings to come in. Mark stayed aloof, and the gap that existed between them was enormous. Upon the arrival of the letter, Sarah opened it as Mark watched, his expression incapable of being read. The findings were clear, as follows. There is a 99.999% chance that Anya is not the father. There is a 99.999% chance that Leo is also the father. The knees of Mark tightened. In the process of reading the lines over and over again, he sunk into a chair, and the color began to fade from his face. It ruptured the dam. He was overcome with tears, not just of relief, but also of tremendous humiliation and regret for what he had done. He gasped out, "Sarah, I'm so sorry," as tears streamed down his cheeks. "I love you so much. I was really an idiot. I observed something that I was unable to comprehend. And I arrived at the most unfavorable conclusion conceivable. It was when you needed me the most that I betrayed you." The next days were spent by him doing his own study in a frenetic manner, and he eventually understood the complex genetic dance that Sarah had discovered. He became aware of the phenomenon of heteropaternal superfecundation and came to the realization that while it is incredibly uncommon in humans, it is believed that around 1 in 400 fraternal. Twins are born to multiracial parents who have particular recessive genes. It is nevertheless feasible from a biological standpoint. However, what was more significant was that he realized the magnitude of his error. The reunion did not take place at an instant. As a result, Sarah's trust had been severely damaged. However, Mark's regret was sincere and unrelenting in its scope. In his role as main caretaker, he was responsible for changing diapers, feeding bottles, and spending hours cuddling both kids. He also spent time apologizing to Sarah and making promises to her, all while marveling at the genetic wonders that they had made together. He apologized in front of their families and explained the complicated genetics with a sudden sense of humility. Mark clasped Sarah's hand on a peaceful evening as they sat together watching Anya and Leo sleeping side by side. One of them was a depiction of Sarah's heritage, while the other was a reflection of Mark's. But both of them were clearly genetically theirs. A deep layer of passion could be heard in his voice as he said, "They are a miracle. Not just because they are identical twins, but also because they are live examples of how intricate and exquisite our narrative really is. Neither the science nor your truth were visible to me at the time. We are grateful to you for fighting for us." As Sarah rested her head on his shoulder, she felt a delicate sense of tranquility gradually take hold of her. Despite the fact that the path had been fashioned in misunderstanding and anguish, it ultimately led them to a better awareness of the magnificent and often shocking tapestry that is human DNA. The relationship between Anya and Leo was not a contradiction of adultery. Rather, it was a demonstration of the secret depths of lineage, the power of recessive genes, and the astounding and surprising creativity of life itself. They became a unique sign of their remarkable family, which was painted in the most surprising and ultimately uniting tones of black and white. Their opposing characteristics were not a cause of guilt, but rather a distinctive emblem of their extraordinary family. The news of the black and white twins quickly circulated across the community. It started out as hushed conversations at the grocery store, and then it evolved into odd stares in the pediatrician's office. The situation became much more explosive, however, when a nurse with good intentions uploaded a picture of Anya and Leo on social media without first obtaining permission from Sarah and Mark. Miracle twins born with opposite skin tones. Dad thought it was impossible. The headline went viral online. Reporters set a camp in front of their residence. Interviews were in need for talk programs. In awe of the extraordinary occurrence, even geneticists contacted out to inquire about it. It was too much for Sarah and Mark to handle. It had only been a short while since they had started to mend their marriage, and now the whole world wanted a piece of their family. When Sarah answered the door during the morning, she saw a camera team standing on her doorstep. There was a reporter who yelled out, "Mrs. Thompson, are you able to explain why your twins have such a distinct appearance? Were you ever in any way unsure that they were both yours?" Sarah felt a knot in her gut. Her heart was hammering when she slammed the door shut. Having Leo in his arms, Mark seemed to be in a state of rage. As he muttered, this must come to an end. But it was not an easy task to stop it. Someone would take a picture of them each time they headed out of the home. When they were at parks, others approached them and asked to touch the infant's skin, as if they were some sort of exhibit. The remarks made on the internet were much more harsh. No way those twins have the same dad. She is not telling the truth. Science does not operate in such a manner. That husband must be in denial. Sarah removed all of her social media links. The security cameras were placed by Mart. However, the harm had already been done. Their private suffering had become a public sight. Following that, an unexpected email received. It is a medical miracle that your twins are an example of. Dr. Evelyn Carter, a well-known geneticist who works at a prestigious research institution, was the one who sent it. Your children represent an incredibly rare genetic occurrence, she said in her letter. Not for the sake of notoriety, but for the sake of research, I would look into their DNA. This has the potential to provide us with groundbreaking discoveries on human heredity. There was a pause here, following all that had happened. Did she really want extra scrutiny? But she was taken aback by Mark. "Maybe this is how we take back control," he stated in response. "If we help science, maybe people will stop treating our family like a freak show." They consented to do a private research. Sarah was already aware of the fact that the appearance of Leo was the consequence of recessive genes from both of his parents expressing in perfect synchrony. The team led by Dr. Carter validated this information. The results were published in a medical publication that is well regarded worldwide. This time, major news sources presented the scientific explanation for the twins, and they did it with respect. Black and white twins defy odds, a story of love, genetics, and second chances. As time went on, the story began to change. Instead of being skeptical, people were awestruck by the beauty that genetics had. They did not pass judgment, but rather witnessed a family that was united by love. Years later, Anya and Leo developed into youngsters who were full of life and self-assurance. Anya, who was known for her quick wit and flamboyant nature, had a passion for dancing and telling stories. As was the case with the physician who had assisted their family, Leo, who was more reserved but profoundly perceptive, was captivated by the scientific world. Leo arrived home from school one day with a grimace on his face. "Some kids said we can't be real twins because we don't look alike," he whispered to himself. Alongside him, Sarah knelt down. "What did you say?" He smiled at Leo. "I informed them that we are identical twins. That our genes are more advanced than theirs is another point." And Anya laughed. "That's right. When compared to a scientific experiment, we are a lot more enjoyable." While watching their children play, Mark placed his arms around Sarah and embraced her. It had been the world's intention to drive a wedge between them, but in the end, it had only served to strengthen them. It was not a case of black and white in their narrative. The subject matter was love, which was messy, difficult, and unbreakable. On top of everything else, it was the most stunning fact.